Hey guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today I thought I'd come in and talk to you about the hardest thing for homesteaders. This is when it comes to succeeding at homesteading. I know that this thing comes up quite a bit, as I have heard it from folks. Every time I go to an event, they bring this up as a struggle, as a challenge. And I thought, well, we'll make a video on it. And I've talked about this before. It's something that's pretty common. Most of you will understand where I'm going with this once I talk about it. And that is when you have one spouse who is at the homestead and you have one spouse who is out working a job. Now, both of you being, or one of you being away really slows down the progress of the homestead, because if they have to be at work 8 hours a day or more, plus you have travel time, so you have an 8-hour day plus an hour there, an hour back, maybe because you're living in a rural place. Most homesteads are in rural areas. That puts a lot of slow progression on projects that you want to have done. And eventually it gets to a point like you throw your hands up and you're like, we're not getting anything done. How are we going to ever build this homestead? There's so many projects we want to do. Let me give you today a few pointers that you might want to take into account and implement for your homestead. Yes, it's going to be harder when you don't have everyone there on board all the time to get things done. But there's some ways around this. And there's some ways where you can continue to feed the fire that you once had at getting that homestead where you want it to be. Let's go through number one. Number one is always, as I have said, make a list. Let's start off by making a list of all the projects you want to have done. And maybe you don't list every single one, because there's probably a lot. But let's just say the first 5 or the first 10. Go ahead, make a list of the first 10 things you want to have accomplished on your homestead, that you want to get done on your homestead, and start at number 1, and then you're going to work your way down. Now, the way you're going to do that in a way that keeps that fire burning to keep going, even though the progress might be slow, is that you're going to dedicate yourself to do a little bit of that project each and every day. Or at least, let's just say you can't do it every day. At least 5 days a week. 5 days a week. You can put in a little bit of effort to getting a project done. Let's just say there's a project where you have to build something. You know what? You're going to make a checklist, and then, hey, that may be one thing you do that day to get towards finishing that project. Just making a list for the project. And then the next day you're going to go out and get a couple of things on that list so that you have them set aside for that project. And then maybe you're going to go the next day and you're going to get a couple more things on that list. Set them aside for the project. And then maybe you've got everything. You're going to do a little bit of work. Just a little bit of prep work to get that project started. And then you're going to do a little bit of work on that project for the next day. Do you see how this goes and goes and goes? What happens is, and relatively quickly, I might add, you're going to look back on that project and be like, wow, I got that project done. I got that project going and we're almost complete, or we're finished. And that's going to continue to give the fire deep down inside so that you can continue to move on to other projects. Because there's nothing like that feeling of success when you complete something you set out to do. You know, that I was told years ago, that's what makes a real man. Start off by doing something hard and finish it. Start off a project and finish it. It gives you a sense of completion. But every single day, your goal is to do a little bit of that project, but first you have to make a list so that you can stay on track. Make a list of projects, and then that first project, make a list of what needs to happen to get that project done. Okay? Write it actually down. Don't type it on your phone. I want you to write it down in a notepad. There's something, I don't know if I want to say the word spiritual, that happens when you actually write things down, physically write things down. You know, they did a study years ago where they took teenagers, young teenagers, 13, 14, 15 years old, and they said, hey, I want you to write down everything you want to be in life, everything you want to achieve in your life. Write it down right now, no matter how crazy it might be. And years later, they went back to these same teenagers who were now adults in their 30s and 40s, and saw how much of that was on that list was accomplished, and it was phenomenal, the amount that they had accomplished that was actually on these lists. One guy says, I want to be a millionaire. He wrote it down. One guy says, I want to be a pilot for a fighter jet. He got that. He wrote it down. I want you to write things down. That's going to be, I just think something happens when you write things down physically. Forget the phones, forget the thumbs, forget the typing. Write it down on a list. All right, that was a long number one, but let's move on to number two. So let's just say this typical scenario that I often see is that mom is at home. She's trying to maintain the homestead. Dad's at work. He's trying to go earn a living so he can earn money to put into the homestead. Meanwhile, you have the crumb crunchers sitting around playing video games or on computers or whatever, doing anything else. You must learn to delegate. If you have kids sitting around, be thinking of things they can do for your projects. You have projects, you want them done. What can they do to help? What can they do and take ownership of on your homestead that they can work towards? From the very young age, my son Joshua took over the sheep. And that was he owned it. This is your project. Those sheep are going to live or die based on how well you keep and care for them. And so as he got older, he got into other things. That has now passed on to my younger son, who is 12 years old, soon to be 13. These sheep are going to live and die based on how well you keep and maintain them. And so far, both of them, Joshua did a fantastic job, and so far Caleb's doing a great job, my youngest. But they have things, not just the sheep, but things that they do on the homestead that they have ownership of, that they have dominion over. It's their thing. So you give them that, and then because they take ownership of it, they start to put in effort, and then that becomes a sense of pride to make sure that it succeeds. It kind of builds on itself. But I learned early as a young adult in the military that you need to delegate. Officers need to delegate. Leaders need to delegate. Dad, if you're the leader of your home, delegate. Mom, if you're the manager of your home, delegate. You need to be doing these things so that you don't go crazy trying to keep up with everything that there is to keep up with, because I know there's a lot, and you have a lot of projects you want to get completed. You have these kids, put them to work. What you're going to do is you're going to instill a sense of pride in them, good workmanship, of all these things that our ancestors used to do at a very young age. And listen, I don't care if your kid is 4 years old. He or she can still do things. A 4-year-old or a 5-year-old can go into the chicken coop and gather eggs. A 4-year-old or a 5-year-old can be taught how to water chickens or feed chickens or do simple tasks on the homestead. Teach them very young so that as they get older, they know that their responsibilities are going to increase, and the rewards, also increase with that. So I'm not below, or however you want to say it. I will pay my kids to do chores because that's how the real world works. When you put in effort in the real world, you're supposed to get reward for that. And as a parent, I don't mind doing that with my children. There are certain tasks, not all. There are certain chores they just do because they do. But there are certain chores on this homestead that once they do them, once they complete them, I will pay them. When Joshua or when Caleb sell a sheep, they get the majority of the money. I do have to pay some taxes, so I do hold a little bit of that back. But when they're raising these sheep, when they sell one, because we're getting ready to sell some here soon, when they sell some, they get the money for that because they're the ones who watered that sheep every day. They're the ones who fed that sheep every day. They're the ones who, looked over them to make sure that they were back in their pens at night safely and all that. They're rotated on a regular basis. They did all that. And so they should get the reward. So don't withhold the reward from your children. And once you've delegated that authority to them, that they get rewarded for all of that authority and for that good management that they're hopefully doing. And Dad, Mom, you need to be over there over their shoulder sometimes, giving them pointers and teaching them how to do these things sometimes. I just taught I gave my oldest son some more instruction today on sharpening chainsaw chains. And I gave my youngest son some instruction today on how to repair one. So it's like you're constantly out there doing these things when you can. If that's something you need to put on your list, put it on your list. If you need to delegate some authority, and in order to get something done, delegate some training, before you can give them that authority to do those things. I hope all that makes sense. Make a list of projects, make a list of the first project on that list, get on it, because you're never going to get anything done if you don't get organized. So that's my number one advice to you. When you feel like you just can't get it all done, you have a giant mountain in front of you, and you don't know how to climb it. The way you climb a mountain is one step at a time. And you got to get those first steps in. So there you go. The hardest thing for homesteaders is completing projects, especially when one spouse works and one spouse stays home. There's how you deal with it. There's 2 ways on how you deal with it. Sun's getting bright. I'm going to get back inside. All right. Love you guys. See you next time in the homestead. Hey, real quick, go check out our t-shirts over at sanctifiedsupply.com. My Pets Make Me Breakfast is over there right now. You can find that. Also, Farm Fresh Butt Nuggets is over there. And Stupid Should Hurt, our best-selling shirt of all time. And those of you out there who keep Sukkot, the Sukkot shirts are up over there right now. You can find a link directly below to those Sukkot shirts and Sukkot hoodies. If you're into that, there's the link right down there below. Check it out and put a comment below if you got one. I'd like to know that. All right, guys. See you next time in the homestead. Bye. Have you ever gone to a health food store and seen all those small bottles of probiotics in your cooler section? Man, can they be pricey. Are you really getting all you need to improve your gut health from those expensive bottles? How viable are they? Most of those products claim to give you between 8 and 15 strains of gut-healthy healing bacteria. Think of each strain of bacteria as a different factory in your gut. Each factory is responsible for breaking down that food in its own way. The more factories you have, the more the food is broken down and the easier the food is absorbed and digested by the body. A 2018 study published by the National Library of Medicine shows that one fermented head of cabbage can produce up to 114 strains of beneficial bacteria. That's a lot more food factories than you're getting from that expensive pill bottle. And that's just cabbage. Imagine the probiotics when you add garlic, onions, pepper, and more to that ferment. PerfectPickler.com and its home fermentation kits provide you with everything you need to get started making your own gut-healthy food factories from the comfort of your own kitchen. PerfectPickler.com even provides a jam-packed recipe book with many of our kits. Visit PerfectPickler.com and start fermenting your own veggies to begin your journey to better gut health. That's PerfectPickler.com. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.